Hey, folks, James Abrinio coming to you. It is January 18. I'm going blind here, and it's late at night. It's about 9:30 p.m. I've got a really great guest on today, this evening, Chris Leibig, a really good friend of mine, really good trial attorney, and I want to talk about his candidacy for House District 5 here in Northern Virginia. Before we get to that conversation, though, I did want to make sure everybody's aware of what's actually happening. So there is a Firehouse primary. I'm sharing the Facebook page of the Alexandria Democrats. So District 5, want to make sure you're there. Tuesday, January 20th. Looks like you can vote at Beatley Library and Charles Houston Rec Center, and it's going to be from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if you are registered in District 5, you can go. There's a few, you've got to essentially sign on that you're a Democrat and you're going to support whoever wins, you know, all those local rules. But just make sure that you put it on your calendar. It is Tuesday. We're doing this Sunday night. So just make sure that you're aware. And with that being said, so Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. How are you doing this evening?
Not bad, long day, but everything's good, James. Thanks a lot for doing it.
Yeah, of course. And so I've known you for years. And for folks that don't know, I'm going to brag about you a little bit. You were a former Alexandria public defender. You've been in private practice doing just really great work on the criminal defense side. I would call you a lawyer's lawyer. I've always respected your work from the legal side. I think you live in Delray. You're married and kids, and apparently you have grandkids. I wasn't aware of that. So, so my first question for you is, why are you wanting to run? What's made you decide you want to serve us all here in the Commonwealth?
James, actually, it's not something I really ever thought of. Just like all of us, we pay attention to politics. Being a defense attorney, you know this the same way as you. You learn things about history. You learn things about politics. It sort of blends itself into what you do, not only because of legal stuff, but, juries, negotiations, learning about your clients. It's really a holistic thing, but really running, never really thought of it. What really got me thinking about maybe someday I should try this was this election cycle.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Meaning the federal one. So, I'm a pretty optimistic person, honestly. I never really thought that the MAGA thing would go this far. And what I mean by that is, I know people have all kinds of different views. And Republicans, I've been friends with Republicans my whole life, That's not how I roll. But this xenophobic nationalism and the whittling away of the people that stick up against the executive branch, it's really scary. I've been talking to people all day, and I've never said this before, but it's something I think is that, what I hate is that the American flag has been co-opted by right-wing people.
Yeah.
I'm patriotic. I love that flag. And yet, am I wrong? If you're walking around and you see somebody proudly sporting that flag these days, what do you think? That's terrible. And I don't want my daughters to think that. And it's a major problem. And there's no pushback in any way, but we're so busy in what we do, that it just goes on one case to the other. We're always involved in all these groups. That doesn't count your personal life. But, during this recent local election cycle, I was thinking, we were advocating for some judge-related issues with the delegations and stuff. And I was saying to myself, if one of these seats opens up, I think I'm going to do it. Now, I never knew it would be this Firehouse thing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it takes a long time to get ready. You got to raise money. You got to get your network together. And I've got a pretty good network. But then suddenly it's 5 days.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. Then you say yes. Now you're in it.
Yeah.
It's like preparing for a big trial. It's nonstop, right?
Yeah.
And then that's how it happened.
What have you found so far? And I'll say, recently, I found the Firehouse primaries a bit frustrating, just because it's been so quick. It's been hard to try to get to know the candidates. How have you felt about that process versus obviously being outside observing, having been paying attention to elections before? What do you think about the process so far? How has that been?
I mean, I went and voted last week. The turnout was maybe 4,500. I thought that was a lot. totally different, obviously, because if you're on a big day for governor, let's say, then it's the down ballot stuff. It's almost, it doesn't matter that much, right? Because people are going to check the box. It's a little bit of name recognition and luck. Nobody's coming to this unless they want to. So I think it's a crapshoot, like, can you get, if everybody I knew lived in the district and showed up, I'd win. But those are two ifs, you know what I mean?
Well, and a good buddy, a mutual friend of ours, Brad Haywood, made a point about the primary, about this Firehouse, that it gives opportunities for folks that aren't the traditional, machine Democrats and Republicans to step in and really have a chance when, maybe it wouldn't be that way otherwise. So I thought that was interesting, an interesting take.
Could be true,
Yeah.
And good.
Let me ask you this. So somebody told me just today, and it did not occur to me, but in the House right now, aside from Don Scott, who's the Speaker, there's not a whole lot of criminal defense lawyers in that body.
No.
What makes that so important to have a guy like you present, or a gal like you present, to be able to represent that side of things?
Well, I don't know everyone there, but there are people that have law practices that do everything, occasionally do criminal defense. And, those are some great attorneys and everything. But you and I know the difference between that and somebody who is really a defense attorney for their whole career at every level. And I think that, one, those people don't tend to run for it because they're too busy. And Scott Sorovel is an extremely accomplished defense attorney, but he's no one like him, actually. But I think now more than ever, it's critical because you just learn a certain skill set. There's a certain confidence to it. There's used to being behind the ball, quick thinking, connecting with people, humanizing people, being in the underdog position all the time and doing well with that. It creates a certain confidence of a mindset, patience. And I think we need that more than ever. But one thing also, it just teaches you not really to be afraid. I mean, think about all the stuff we go through in the big cases. And I mean, like, you just get used to it and don't give up, and you want to win people over. And I think that in the big context is the type of person that we need out there for what may be to come,
Yes. And by the way, I don't want to pretend that I'm in the same league of criminal defense lawyers as you. You're definitely the next rung, and I'm willing to admit that. Starting off as a public defender, and I did a little bit of work as a public defender as well. Explain to folks watching this how that impacts how you view the world, how you view how society runs, how you view statutes. Tell me about that perspective.
Right. So, what that made me think, first of all, is you sometimes get, as a defense attorney, you get that standard question of, how do you represent these people? It's just cliche. And people don't realize how easy it is if you really do that. What they're talking about is morally, right? I'm like, this is not going to be a problem for any good person because they're human beings and you like them. And not only that, when you see the way the other side acts, you're going to lose that. You're going to absolutely understand that you are on the right side, a lot of the time. And that's just how it is. Now, you might think somebody's a lazy, degenerate thief, but when you see somebody aggressively trying to put them away for way too long that doesn't know them and is only doing it to be competitive, and then a judge that's willing to do it, it's easy to get on that team. That's what criminal defense really is. It's mostly not serial killers. It's mostly not people that have an inexplicable seeming evil. I don't think really anyone has that, but whatever. That isn't what it is. It's representing the community across the board too. I mean, I have tons of wealthy clients, and they're also being treated badly, honestly. It's just how it is, and nobody really knows that till they're in it. So I think it's but it doesn't take a month as a public defender to see what's going on with how the people in the lower income brackets are being treated.
Sure.
You know?
And for what it's worth, it is a truly humbling perspective to have to, you realize that you're, fortunate to be where you're at. If you're elected, are there particular policies, and we're going to talk about right to work in a moment too, because that's an interesting topic. I wanted to get more information, but are there particular policies, laws, issues that you're going to be focused on the criminal justice side that you think would be productive for Alexandria?
Well, I'll confess to you that I don't know exactly how the assignments work and everything. If I were fortunate enough to be elected, I understand there's a process and you are put on committees. I assume your interest has something to do with it, but I'm not sure you can control that. Obviously, I think I could be a leader in the criminal justice arena, and I would contribute to that no matter what, but I'm not sure that's how it works,
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about is like, there's a lot of issues out there that I understand in the broad context, but I really don't know what the recent bills have been and what's the debate about, all this stuff is very much particular. But again, in what we do, you're used to learning a lot in each case. For example, what we do isn't really about statutes and the Constitution completely. Like whatever, I had a case a few years ago that was about midwives, right? That was the subject of the case. So I learned all about that. And had another one about the snowplow industry in Northern Virginia. So you learn all about that. Like just kind of in our parlance to do that.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be good at catching up with it. Now, what issues do I want? The mandatory minimums. I think there should be even more bigger systemic changes in that. I personally think the way judges are selected should be different.
Talk about that. What's your issues with how Virginia does it?
Because it's absolutely mysterious and obscure. Too much of it has to do with contacts. It has to do with just who you know. Sometimes it's more important to be in the bar association than be someone that would be good at it. I think it should be merit-based, and what merit-based means is someone who is academically inclined. When you are arguing before a court, you're entitled to have the other person potentially know more than you, potentially. And also, this is a hard thing to define, but someone sitting on that bench should be the type of person that people would go to in regular life to decide difficult questions. Now, you and I both know that standard's not followed. And there's a lot of great judges out there. I don't mean that. But I mean the process should be selecting them upon that quality.
Yeah, and it is interesting because there are a lot of great. I mean, in Fairfax, I'm going to brag about our bench. We got great judges, but then you go to different jurisdictions, and you see things that happen. That's like it's hard to explain to the public the injustice, and until people actually go to the courtroom, they just don't understand.
No, I mean, we could talk about this all day. Hard to explain to your client and their family. How could that have happened? Well, it happened. They have a lot of power, and it's not going to get reversed on appeal either because of the abuse of discretion standard. So there we are.
You mentioned mandatory minimums. Talk about what you're thinking there.
It's got to be the number one thing. And I was saying this earlier, but when people hear mandatory minimums, I think they generally think about the drug cases, and everything, and people are getting all this time. That's part of it. But in practice, what the mandatory minimums do, it means somebody's charged with a case. And if they lose, they're going to get 5, 10, 20 years. Let's just say 5. What really happens is it's leverage, right? You have a client and the prosecutor comes to you and says, we'll drop the mandatory minimum part, but you got to do 2 years, right? Or plead guilty when you have a good defense. That puts someone in a dilemma. That's why people plead guilty to things they didn't do or didn't completely do and can't get the fair sentence. And most people back down to that. And we advise them to do it too, don't we?
Yeah.
That's a game. That turns it into a game. And that everybody knows, under the Constitution, under the common law, under our common law culture, judges decide the sentence, not the public.
Well, in the assault on law enforcement, I know that there was a lot of, Virginia is kind of a purple state. There's a little bit of hesitation, but now that we see what's happening with ICE in Minnesota, and you see the violence of what law enforcement can do, and it's particularly in Virginia, where all you have to do is tap somebody and it's assault, and if it happens to be an officer, you're facing 6-month mandatory minimum and a felony sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting issue. Talk about, have you had some interesting assault on law enforcement cases where
sure.
they're compelling for this change? Yeah,
most definitely. So they charge, if you're being arrested, someone's being arrested, and they struggle with police. It depends on the police officer, but a lot of times they'll charge it, right? And because there's some physical contact, trying to get out of the handcuffs, running and getting tackled, all this stuff, right? Now, to be clear, that's a misdemeanor anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a crime, and you can get jail time for it. But what happens is they get charged with assault on a police officer, which means they have to serve, which is a felony, and you have to serve 6 months. Now, half of these people are either severely intoxicated addicts or mentally ill.
Or both.
Yeah, both often. Yeah. Now, when there's other people that had a bad night, and if you punch a police officer in the face, you know what? I'm not fine. That's dangerous behavior. I understand why 6 months sounds maybe about right for that. I don't know. That's a serious assault if you really do that, or especially with a weapon. But most of the ones in court are de minimis touchings, and a lot of them, whatever. Somebody might touch an officer on the arm during a conversation, like a heated conversation, but like, no, sir, and touch the shoulder, assault on an officer. What do you do with the case? You try to talk them out of that penalty so you can have the misdemeanor without having to do 90 days or whatever, right? And sometimes with a good prosecutor, you have to present the mitigation, and a lot of cops end up being cool about it. Sometimes you talk to them, apologize, and it's fine. Otherwise, you go to trial, and if not, then they end up a felon, serve 6 months, lose their job, and all for a few-minute contact that was not worth it, And that's a great example, because the one you named is the most common one that comes up, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of worse ones too, for conduct that doesn't deserve it, and those come into play. But yeah, the assault on an officer is a dime a dozen. Really tragic. As soon as you meet someone charged with it, you have to tell them all this stuff. It's awful, and they're usually pretty sorry about it.
Yeah, and for folks that don't understand, just because you remove a mandatory minimum doesn't mean the jury or judge, depending on who sentences, can't impose significant jail time. I mean, it's not like they're prevented from imposing that.
Yeah, and I think, police officers don't deserve to be treated terribly at all. They protect us. It's a hard job. On the other hand, they are trained to deal with these situations, and they're usually not very cowardly or weak people. And I don't think you need to do 6 months for grabbing their elbow to argue, whatever. I think that's a great one that should easily be changed,
You also, on your website, were talking about right to work. Tell us, from a 101 standpoint, what does that mean, and why does it need to change here in Virginia?
Well, so I'll try to tell it really quick. It basically, in the early 19th century, the first labor union sort of started up, and over time they became more and more powerful, and a labor union would get workers to make a group to bargain against the boss, or else have a strike. So this caused the strife that's in history. People get killed over this stuff. Eventually, Congress made laws about it, the National Labor Relations Act and such, that said it is legal to have a union and other rules. States reacted to that. And so one way that you have a union, let's just say the quintessential example of a factory, you have a collective bargaining agreement or another agreement, and it says that you've hired someone here, they have to be part of the union. Now, I see that that's a little bit controlling, right, or something. But what all that means is they have to pay minimal dues per month or some other period of time, and they're in the union. Now, the right to work law says you cannot do that. You cannot have a union that someone has to join. And I understand from a sort of free thinking perspective, that seems right. The problem with it is the intention of it is to destroy unions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
If you have that law, it effectively does destroy unions. Because what happens is what people don't join it, but they have to the union still has to advocate for them.
mm-hmm,
And it creates a free rider situation where they don't have the resources to do anything and everything else. Now, over the long haul, most people do want to be in the union because the downside is very low, the dues aren't very high, and you get collective bargaining, which makes your wages better, benefits better. And in fact, back before, it created the middle class.
mm-hmm,
And the wealth disparity that we have now, some of that is because the unions have become weak, and so eliminating that law, then it becomes more of a free market as to what unions would be in which places.
mm-hmm,
Now, also, just to be clear, in no instance is the government forcing an employer to pay a certain wage.
mm-hmm,
It's a bargain.
mm-hmm.
It's a collective bargain where the employer's still more powerful. It's just that they have representatives representing all the people that work there together to get better wages and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's about 26 states that have the law. The intention of the law, it's corporations that want that law,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think it should be removed.
Now it's an interesting time. We just elected our first woman governor, Abigail Spanberger. Super excited that we got that change. She's kind of signaled a bit of hesitation for repealing right to work. What's your thoughts on that? How do you navigate that issue?
I only heard about that the other day. I don't know what her argument is on that ground or how she campaigned on it. I don't know the answers to those things.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I imagine there's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she's ran as a centrist, which who the hell am I? She won an election. I'm happy she won it. And she's pro-business and the lobbying groups, the business lobbying groups have done a great job to make it sound like this is a threatening issue. Obviously, Jennifer Carroll Foy, senator, has proposed the repeal. Do you plan on voting for it?
Well, Jen is a very good friend of mine. I haven't read it. I would guess I probably would, but I would never say that without looking at every detail.
Yeah.
And I think this is an important point. Being pro-business for Virginia is important.
Mm.
Being for unions does not go against that. That's a false dichotomy.
Sure.
Having a healthy business environment includes having a strong middle class with decent wages and stability, and that helps the whole economy. It does not deter a successful company to come to Virginia just because they have collective bargaining. The collective bargaining doesn't mean that the employer's hands are forced or anything of that nature. And also, you get longer term employees. You get people that are loyal to the company instead of taking the job because they have to and can't wait to get something else. There's a whole set of sort of community things that come from it. So I don't agree that being pro-union means you're anti-business. And I do think attracting businesses to Virginia is important.
Yeah. And, that whole, it's going to hurt. But we live right outside D.C. We have the history. We have the amenities. We have the weather. I don't think businesses are going to be taking up their stakes because, we give workers a little bit more ability to actually do their jobs fairly and get paid a decent wage.
Right. And it is it's a great place to live. And yeah, maybe if we're going to put our factory in the middle of nowhere and pay minimum wage, maybe that would be attractive. But they're not going to compete with Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun for bringing in businesses.
Another issue that you mentioned, I took a quick look at your website. You mentioned affordable housing. Talk about that and talk about what you think can be done to improve that, especially Alexandria City. I feel like it's an interesting place.
Well, I don't know what kind of bills have been talked about here. I'm just telling you my opinion. I've thought this for a long time. It's a great city, but it's absolutely not the case that everybody's doing well.
Yes.
lots of people that work in Alexandria don't live there because they can't afford to.
Yeah.
There aren't any there are places that really, the housing market, forget about that for buying a house, but renting even, they don't have very many smaller apartments that are within reason for someone on a working class budget, especially if you were alone, Lots of the people that serve the city do not live here at all. They live in Stafford, they live down south, and that, again, takes away from the fabric of the community. So, there's rules such as, like, you can't renting out, having group houses, being able to rent out rooms in your house and such. There's regulations about that. Some people have like a side house that they can't rent except under strict conditions. Also, when they build a new complex, but it's all $750,000 condos.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, and I see that, but it's not, there's a different way to do things. And I'm not at least bit about constraining commerce, trying to make restrictions that are oppressive or anything. But it is a great community, but could be a lot better. It's actually getting stratified.
Yes.
And the reason is that.
You mentioned what's going on in DC, and obviously Virginia is in the news now with redistricting. Have you been following what's going on there and our attempt to fight back in Texas?
I haven't done it. I understand the battle line there, which is that because the MAGA army is trying to corner the market on the House of Representatives in other states, you got to fight back in kind, just like happened in California. There's no choice.
What do you say to the folks that say, look, what you're doing by redistricting in Virginia is drowning out Virginia voters? This isn't the way democracy is supposed to work.
I first off would say it's a fair point. It's a republic. And zoom out and look at all the congressional districts and what they look like and why they look that way. And this has been happening for a long time. It's purely political. But here, it's the other side is going so aggressive that to not attempt to compete with that is just giving away the farm. Now, I guess you could redistrict everyone and make it in rectangular blocks drawn by a computer. That's the most fair way to be, but that's not going to happen. I don't know what happened if it did, but anyway, that is a political thing, I'd have to admit.
Yeah. Well, and where I land on it is we'd never be here if Trump had not pushed for redistricting in the first place.
Totally.
You've seen UVA, George Mason reaching deals with DOJ. Obviously, the Democrats now coming in. I guess all the board of visitors at UVA just resigned on pressure from Spanberger. What's your thoughts on what the university should be doing, and how the legislature should be helping or maybe staying out of the way? What do you have any thoughts on that?
James, I got to tell you, I don't know that much about this issue. I only recently heard about it. So
okay, fair.
I heard about it briefly, but I'm not big up on that.
Is there any topic that you wanted to talk about that we haven't addressed?
I would just say that, I know all of the members of the Alexandria delegation to the General Assembly and the Senate. I really like them. I would not have run against one of them. And I like the other politicians in Alexandria too. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it not always being the same people. It's a club.
Yeah.
And I think people should take that seriously. What's wrong with having a different voice? I have a background that is used to fighting. I may not know all the bills that are currently pending, but I'm going to figure it out quick. And I have a certain style that a lot of very experienced defense attorneys have that we need in this time.
What do you think? If elected, what are your first moves going to be? What are you thinking that you'll be doing? Whether it's just logistically getting ready, or how are you going to prep to get down to Richmond?
That's a very good question and a complicated one. We've had about 5 days, but I'll tell you that, I practice all over Virginia and I have an office in Charlottesville. So driving to Richmond is nothing to me, honestly. That is what I'm used to that stuff. I have cases in Virginia Beach, I had one in Abingdon, a murder case last year.
Mm.
The travel part isn't so much it. Logistically, I'd really have to connect with some of my friends that are there to get advice on how they transitioned it, John Carroll Foy, Scott Survell, they have practices, other people too, sort of get a read on how that would work, I'd love to be able to, if I were fortunate enough to be elected, I'd love to be on the courts committee, but that may not happen. But I would have no choice but to find a mentor and just go that way with, like, I think everybody has to.
And what I've liked about this interview from you is your openness to be like, you know what, I got some things to learn. And for what it's worth, folks that happen to actually watch it this long, and God bless you if you made it this long. I will say, again, just in the legal community, Chris is the lawyer's lawyer. And he could be arrogant, and he is not. And obviously, Chris, you're very curious, brilliant dude. I mean, you're just really smart. So for what it's worth, I'm excited about you putting your hat in the ring. I know you got a lot going on, and I know it takes a lot from you and your family to do it. But I'm always heartened to see folks that are doing it for the right reasons. You've got a successful practice. You got probably better things you could be doing with your time from, just enjoying life and all that. But I really appreciate you taking the time to put yourself out there. And I do wish you the best, man. And anything else you want to add beyond me just bragging about you?
No, James, I really appreciate the time. I really do. I need all of these kind of conversations I can get. And thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, well, best of luck. I'm going to let you get to it. If you need anything, reach out to me. And but I do wish you the best. And let's get them Tuesday, man. All right.
All right, man. I'll see you.
All right. Have a good evening.